In this video, we're going to be checking out another release from the folks over at Star Ace. This is the Star Ace 300 Rise of an Empire Artemisia 1/6 scale collectible action figure. At a very young 6 years of age, her family was slaughtered by the Greek. Artemisia was taken captive and suffered terrible physical and sexual abuse at the hands of the Greeks. Left for dead on the streets, a Persian official found her and felt sad for her. She was subsequently raised and trained by the Persians, and the young girl proved to be a capable warrior. She, in fact, grew in favor of the Persian king Darius when she effortlessly murdered all his enemies. This is from the My Favorite Movies series. Artemisia is product code SA0045. Let's grab a tape measure to start this review and figure out how tall the figure stands. Putting it next to Artemisia, she stands at about 11¼ inches in height. She stands rather effortlessly, but if you want to have a little bit more of a oomph with the way you display the figure, the folks over at Star Ace include a rather shiny black oval-shaped display base. Soaked across the top, rather it is actually dry, but printed across the top there is the blood-stained 300 Rise of an Empire and some additional blood splattering all around the edge there. It's a nice, certainly a nice way to display the figure, and of course you've got the adjustable waist clip. Now this will go around the figure's waist. I will say though, when you are putting it around the figure's waist, there are these little, well, there's details all around her, especially in the waist area. So mindful that you don't accidentally clip this. These are of a denser plastic, yes, but the way that they are attached to the material probably is just glued, so I wouldn't be too quick to just put the waist clip on her, except for being a little bit more careful, because you wouldn't want to accidentally snag this in the process. Getting a look at her head sculpt. Now, up to this point, I think I've reviewed all the 300 as well as all the 300 Rise of an Empire figures from the folks over at Star Ace, so I'd like to hope that my opinion has weight to it. I would say that based on what we've looked at up to this point, this is the most accurate head sculpt that we've gotten from those figures. The likeness to Artemisia is uncanny, and as well to actress Eva Green, who portrays her in the movie. A very well portrayal of her in the movie. I definitely think, though, the head sculpt is top-notch. One of the best, if not the best, that they've done so far. One of the other female figures that they've released was Queen Gorgo, portrayed by Lena Headey, and I definitely think this is leaps and bounds better than that head sculpt. That head sculpt was good, but it definitely had one of those elements where you had to see it from certain angles to get the proper likeness down. Here, on the other hand, I think it is an uncanny likeness, and I think the likeness is spot on. Actually, from some angles, like this angle right here, she also kind of looks like Claudia Black, who's in Farscape, one of my all-time favorite sci-fi series. She would have been Erin Soon. But she does bear a little bit of a resemblance there as well, but I really think this is by far one of the best, if not the best, likenesses that Star Ace has done up to this date. I've said this on countless occasions. They're really good at applying paint to their head sculpts. Here it's very subtle. In fact, you don't see many variations in skin pigmentation here, but there's these little subtle spots, little freckled areas here on her face. Of course, one of the big noted features on Artemisia's face is the more darkened eyebrow area, the dark shadowed areas around her eyes, which really gives her that sense of depth. The eyebrows are painted on, but it actually looks like they're sculpted on and then painted on top of that. I don't know why, but I'm really liking her hair. Her hair, much like in the movie, is extremely straight and flat, and over the course of me just opening the figure up and just kind of having a look at it, it's gotten a little bit on the frayed side. Just kind of smooth that off, but the hair is very accurate. I would say it's one of the more accurate looking like hair, because sometimes getting a 6-scale figure release, when you get them in hand, the hair does come across like doll hair, a sort of artificial style of hair. Here, quite rather the opposite. I feel like the hair is just as good as the head sculpt. Again, it may involve just a little bit of kind of cleaning it up a little bit from here to here, or again, you want to get a little bit more drastic, you can bring the hair down. Again, it depends completely how you want to have the figure displayed. In the opening part of this review, I alternated a little bit between having the hair slightly back and having the hair a little bit brought forward. And you could do a little bit of finessing, if you will. I guess you could use a little bit of product. I probably would stay away from using product, in all honesty, just because that could potentially damage the hair. But again, you could kind of just bring the hair a little bit over to the front. But it seems a lot of times she sports the hair relatively straight. It's probably the most number of times that I've been correcting and kind of self-combing the hair with my fingers over the course of this review. I probably have done it more so now than I've done in most reviews of 6-scale figures, but the hair is actually quite nice. As for the rest of the figure, she is wearing a long skirt, and there's this nice beadwork that's been added down the main, I guess, train, the longer, just before you get to the slit of it. Now, I didn't realize this right away until later, that there is a wire frame. The frame seems to run, not necessarily up here. It doesn't seem like it holds any bit of bend, but certainly down here, it does hold whatever bend that you want to put it in. Now, it does limit a little bit what you can do with the dress, simply because she's just got that big slit down the front here, but you could curl the trained dress or skirt, if you will. You could kind of just curl it up a little bit on the one side, and in the opening end of it, I had one part of the dress brought further down, and then I just kind of frayed the other one straight up, just to kind of give that sense that like wind was hitting it. You probably will see also, moving the skirt to the side, that her legs are wearing the equivalent of almost like fishnet stockings. The material feels rather dense, actually, a lot thicker than what I was expecting it to be. Of course, she's got the double hinge in the knee. One thing you will probably have to be aware of, though, is while you are bending the knee, you don't accidentally catch that fabric inside the creased area in which you're bending the knee, because it may cause a tear or just a fray that may start developing there. So you just want to be careful that you maybe just kind of hold on to the fabric as you're bending the knee, just to make sure that there's no excess that gets caught in there as a result. Then it gets down to her boots. Very simple, straightforward boots. The material does feel like it's more of a denser plastic than what I was expecting. Of course, that will limit what you can do with the feet. I mean, you can obviously rotate the boots, but what you may find having problems with is bending the foot. I actually think we had this problem before with a couple of the other releases that they did, It is definitely much harder. It's not going to be the easiest thing to really bend, so you may ultimately just be relegated to bending the knees, or at the very least rotating the boots than anything else. Then further up, she's got her armor here, which serves as armor plating on the front, and then it wraps its way around. I'm just going to move the hair just to the side for a second. And you get this wonderful, wonderful spiked, almost spinal cord armor that jets out from the torso area here. These are softer plastic. I wouldn't worry too much. I know at the beginning I mentioned about the waist clip. The waist clip actually is the bigger concern of just catching on the side. You would not want to have that rip away from the fabric. It seems as if, though, it's only attached, looks like there's just glue that's attaching it to the lower belt area of the skirt. Up here it looks like it is separate from the torso, and of course it connects up at the top there. It's got little rivets, and it's been painted in like a metallic gold, but most of that gold actually shares a lot of space with a dark dry brushing that has gone in there as well, just to bring out some of those details. Very effective, actually. Up here she's got some shoulder pads, which carries a lot of that gold carryover. Actually, the gold runs around the front area and down the sides with the straps. She's also got a couple of holsters on the sides in which she can hold her swords. I'll show you that in a second. And a couple of little almost fang-like decorations. These tooth-like decorations that are jetting out from the bottom. Now, this section here is separate from the rest of the torso. It looks almost like, when you look at it, that the two are attached, but that couldn't be further from the truth. They are separate from one another. I guess that actually is better, because then it doesn't limit the posability. She doesn't seem to move a whole lot. We'll talk about that in a second, but at the very least, it doesn't limit these two sections from working independent to one another. By the way, speaking of independent, the shoulder straps are the one thing I'm a little iffy on this particular figure. What they've done is they've attached it, but they've attached it only by a fabric material. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I've already got a rip starting to develop. I've barely done anything to the figure itself. This side, again, is looks like it's not really much holding on to it whatsoever. So just be mindful of that. That can't necessarily be the case with all the figures, but that is definitely something you would want to be worried about. You can, again, see that little bit of separation, a considerable amount of separation happening from the shoulders to the rest of the torso. Once that came off, I guess one thing you could do is just glue the shoulder pad to the shoulder here. I wish they had used a stronger material, though, connecting this. You can even see it at the top there. It's barely holding on. They really should have used a stronger material connecting the shoulder area armor to the rest of the torso plate here. Getting a look at her accessory, she comes with two broad swords, which appear to be identical to one another right down to the bottom of the hilt. Seem identical to one another. They are painted primarily in gold. Of course, you've got the side peeking through of the blade of the sword itself. But they are really beautiful looking pieces. Equally quite long. They're about a third of the length of the figure itself. She does also come with a series of interchangeable hands, which we can look at right now. They're closed-fisted. You can't really. The pointer finger is molded to the thumb. What you can do is you can take the end of the hilt off to slide it through the hand. I did notice, though, initially getting the figure out of packaging, that I did have a struggle getting the handle of the hilt of the sword through the actual opening of the hand. I had to kind of just twist it back and forth, but it seems to have worked a groove in there, allowing the hands to hold the swords a little bit better. And of course you can do that with the other hand. On the other hand, she also has the gripping hand there as well. Now what you can also do, as we had talked about earlier in this review, you can take the hilt, put that back onto the end there, and you can also slide these. There's these openings on the sides of her, I guess her torso. You can put the swords in there as well. This is effective too if you want to also display her with the smaller dagger. I suppose in theory you could just swap one of the blades out for the smaller dagger, and the dagger could fit into place as well. Let's have a look at the dagger. Just get her to stand. Dagger's a lot smaller. By size comparison, there it is next to the broader sword. A lot smaller of a blade, much easier to kill her enemies with if she's wielding something small like this. This fits in her hand, but to do that, you just want to detach that. This is the top part here. Take the hand, slide it through, and then slide the other handle, the other part of the handle through. I have noticed, though, moving the handles in and out of the hands, that there is a little bit of a stain that's been left inside, just a little bit of a wear. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. The handles, of course, on the dagger is a little more trickier to get in there because you really have to kind of get inside underneath the fingers to fit them through, but she does also hold the blade as well. Then she gets a bow, then she gets an arrow, and what's interesting is that from what I can see, it does not look like you can remove it. Obviously for that, because once again, the finger is molded to the thumb, they've simply just sculpted the hand holding the bow. I do appreciate this because I've also had struggles in the past with taking figures and trying to fit the arrow through their hand. Affixing it in place guarantees you that it's not going to go anywhere. And then, of course, she's got the arrow. It's a little on the thinner side, so be very careful that you don't accidentally bend it. The pointed tip of the arrow is a nice gunmetal gray. It's been painted with some darker grays in there as well. And then you've got the feathered portion, a much darker gunmetal gray also as well. To fit that into her hand, simply just grab. I find it's easy to grab. This part here is separate, so just kind of grab onto her forearm, pull that off, and then make sure this is as far up as you can get it. Then go ahead and take the arrow, or the bow, and attach that into place. Like that. And then you can go ahead and grab the other side on the other hand. And she does include this hand here, which is very much unique to the other ones that we get in this release. This one is ideal for holding the arrow as well as the bow string. And again, you just want to fit that in place here. It's a little difficult because you have to get it around the gauntlet. The gauntlet does want to peek its way through, kind of get in the way a little bit. And then you've got the bow and the arrow. Now, to get her to look as if she's actually firing the arrow, I should say, go ahead and just attach that hand in place once again. Now, you can bring this arm up. You can take the string. Let me see if I can show you here. You can take the string and you can pull it back. Luckily, it is using a real threading, and it can pinch its way or loop its way onto the fingers. Let me just show you what's happening here, like that. It's not very secure. In fact, 9 times out of 10, you may have to do it a couple of times before it finally catches itself on. But one thing that will aid you in that is you can take the arrow, and the arrow will fit in between her fingers. More so, the stem of the arrow will fit in between her fingers, like that. And then you can use that sort of as an aid to help also hold the cord, the threading from the bow. The one thing I wish that this did have, though, this hand here, was something to catch. Let's see if I can do this with my only 2 hands I have available. I wish that there was something right here. If the finger was slightly up or the thumb was separated just far enough that you could run that right underneath and it would hold on to it, because a lot of the work is being done solely by this hand here, by holding the thread, the cord, as well as holding the arrow. It's effective, but one downside to it is a lot of times you may have the arrow sticking out here rather than closer to the hand, and a lot of that could be fixed if they had put just a little notch in between the finger and the thumb, that you could fit the arrow in between that, like that. And here's exactly what I was talking about here. Again, you can kind of bring it towards the hand, but there's not really enough that's keeping it together. I guess you could put like an elastic or something right there. Pretty much all the work is being done by this hand here. The hand is holding the threading back, as well as it's holding the arrow. If there was only just a little bit more of a ledge happening here, you could compensate it by trying to bring the bow around, but it does leave a little bit of the gap on the side. It doesn't really look like the arrow's resting against her hand, sadly. As for her articulation, Artemisia will have the following. Her head will rotate all the way around. It is on a ball joint. It will ultimately move the hair a little bit. You may want to just kind of bring that out of the way as well. Yes, I've found myself adjusting and fixing the hair on this figure more than I have on any other figure. It's just such nice hair that I feel compelled to always want to be fixing it. There we go. Again, she does also have that ball joint, like I said, the hinge happening back and forth on the shoulders. Arms do hinge outward. I do worry about the longevity, though, of these little panels, the little threading, the material, I should say, that they've used on the underside of the shoulder guards. I might actually see if I can get it like another material. I don't really want to have to take the torso off to accomplish this. Yeah, it's barely holding on there. I'm going to see if I can find a different material that I could put underneath that, or I may just try to glue it to the shoulder sleeve. I don't really want to do that, but I certainly know that that's not going to probably last very long, so that's a shame. The arms do not seem to rotate. However, she does have a double hinge on the elbow. She has a rotation in the hand. That also hinges back and forth. Upper torso does have what looks to be a crunch or a ball joint, although doesn't really move all that much. Legs move quite easily, though. Big help is the fact that it's got that split up the middle. She does also have a rotation actually at the top area of the knee, or thigh area, double hinge on the knee. And then also, as we've looked at before, she does have the swivel on the boot, but because it's a denser material that they use, you really can't get a whole lot of posability happening, at least from the foot. You can from the legs, sadly the foot, not so much. Without a doubt, Artemisia is my favorite release so far that Star Ace has done under the banner of 300 and 300 Rise of an Empire. I did struggle looking at Queen Gorgo and actually seeing a likeness to actress Lena Headey. Here, on the other hand, looking at Artemisia, it is uncanny to actress Eva Green, and really a true testament that Star Ace puts a lot of time and care into their releases. I love this figure, and unfortunately, as much as I love the figure, I am really worried about the shoulder pad state of this 6-scale release. I don't know why, if it's just specifically mine and mine alone, but they did use what seemed to be very thin fabric attaching the shoulder pads to the otherwise torso plate of her armor. I may have to go in, I'm certain I'll have to go in and fix that, and that's really a shame because everything else about the figure I love so much. By far, like I said, this is the best release that Star Ace has done under 300 and 300 Rise of an Empire. I really liked Artemisia in the movie, and I think true justice has been done to her in 6-scale form. If you are interested in picking up Artemisia for yourself, you should be able to find her now in online stores. Of course, we're going to have a look at some more Star Ace releases on this channel, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, though, like I said, we were looking at the Star Ace 300 Rise of an Empire. This was product code, by the way, SA0045 from my favorite movie series, Artemisia. Also, if you haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so. That's the best way that you can guarantee that new videos coming onto this channel you'll never miss out on. You can also hit that bell notification. Ring-a-ling-a-ling goes the bell. But 100%, the best way to guarantee that you're not missing out on any content that's coming to this channel is make sure you head over to the main page and go to the section that says videos. See if there's anything that you may miss along the way. Feel free to check out those videos and comment in those. Always like reading new comments in older videos. Lots more videos coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.